So if he was concerned with self-defense, then I would suggest learning how to fight first before specializing. Now, what's up, guys? Hong Nguyen, OG Fitness. Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new, this channel is all about fitness for judo and martial arts for older guys. So if you guys are young, well, unfortunately, you won't be for long. All right, so in today's video, we're going to talk about why judo is not actually my first choice if I wanted to learn self-defense. Like at this point, it's too late because, well, I've been doing judo for a very long time. Well, very long, like 9 years, going on 10, I guess, and a whole bunch of other martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, what else? Wrestling, and I've done kung fu, taekwondo, blah blah blah. Anyway, so I'm like really well rounded at this point, and of course I'm also into MMA because, well, it's the ultimate form of expression in martial arts because you literally could do, well, not everything, but pretty darn close in my opinion. Okay, so just a quick side note for those of you guys who are new to this channel. I am a 45-year-old judoka, so I have a black belt in judo and a blue belt in BJJ, lifelong martial artist. And yes, so let's move on. Now, this video was sparked by this comment in the comment section. Let me read this out to you guys. Dude, I was born in 1989. I have average body frame, 5'9", 160 pounds, lifting weights for the last 14 years. I also suffered from low back pain, disc herniation, and sciatic pain due to years of bad form of deadlifting and squats. Now, I would like to martial arts for self-defense. As for striking, I am thinking boxing and judo. What would you suggest? Thanks. Now, I'm assuming that our friend here doesn't have a martial art background in any martial art, any combat sports. So if he was concerned with self-defense, then I would suggest learning how to fight first before specializing. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, boxing and judo are specialized combat sports. Yes, judo is a martial art. Yes, boxing could also be considered a martial art, but they're highly specialized. And what happens when you specialize is that you usually end up with bad habits that might get you knocked out, right? For example, in boxing, if you bob and weave, and they go low in boxing when they do that, you can get head kicked, you can get kneed, and that would be the end of the fight. Now in judo, like one of the bad habits that you develop is that, well, you just walk in straight and try to grab somebody. Like you could just get knocked out with a simple 1-2 combo right there, right? You actually have to close the distance in a way that's safe. Even though I am a judo guy and I love judo, guys, right? As a martial art, as a sport, as a discipline, like for everything it brings to the table, it's awesome. With that said, though, in judo, you don't learn how to punch. You don't learn how to kick. You don't learn how to elbow strike. You don't learn how to use your knees. You don't learn how to ground and pound. You don't know how to get up from the bottom, meaning you don't know how to get up from underneath when a guy's on top of you raining down punches. And also, your jits is gonna suck. So your submission game isn't gonna be all that good, especially on the ground, where most submissions are done. In judo, you do have newaza and you do have arm locks and all that, but generally speaking, most judo guys kind of tend to ignore that aspect a lot. They don't focus on it enough, and then so they have good stand-up, but then on the ground, they're not as good as jiu-jitsu guys. So if you just do judo, you won't even have that. You also don't learn how to take people down against the wall or to defend takedowns against the wall. Like, yes, sure, your judo skills might come in handy, and it really does in MMA if you have it. But yeah, you don't work on that at all, and you're not used to it. You also don't know how to do double leg takedowns. because you'll never practice that, even though it's a part of judo. And that's mainly because in the Olympics they took out the leg. Well, they banned leg attacks, and that's where we are right now with this. Now with boxing, you would have the same issues except for the striking. Like you would know how to punch, but then everything else would be missing. Oh, and you wouldn't be able to submit anybody because, well, you wouldn't have a submission game. So really my suggestion is MMA. So MMA is going to teach you how to fight, and then once you get a grasp on that, you have a good handle on how to fight and handle yourself, then from there you can specialize. So here are some reasons why I think that MMA actually stands head and shoulders over judo for self-defense. You learn striking for MMA because striking for MMA is very different from just regular striking like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Even though Muay Thai is, I think, the most complete out of all the striking arts, but never mind that for a second. By learning striking for MMA, you won't develop bad habits that would get you knocked out. For example, boxing, where they bob and weave a lot, and you could easily just get knocked out like that by someone who knows how to kick. The other thing as well, you don't, if you're just a boxer or even a judo person, you actually don't know how to defend against leg kicks. So that's the thing, guys. Anything that you learn how to do, you'll be able to defend against it. And anything you don't understand, you don't know how to do, then you won't be able to defend against. So the second thing is that you're going to learn takedowns for MMA, which is very different because takedowns usually have to be set up properly with punches. Or if your opponent is rushing you and they're coming in strong and fully committed, then you can time it and you can take them down with a double leg or whatnot. And this is something that's really important because in judo, like I said, if you just walk in, we have the habit of just walking in straight with our chin held high because, there's no punching in judo. So you just walk in like that. And we're talking about sports judo, by the way, right? So you just walk in like that and you can get hurt and knocked out. And if you were to do wrestling, pure wrestling, then that posture, the way they start off in wrestling, it's not really realistic because nobody starts that way. Like if you're hunched over like that, you're gonna get head kicked. The other thing that MMA is gonna be good for is that it's gonna teach you jiu-jitsu for MMA. Now, it is different because sports jiu-jitsu, 80% of that stuff ain't gonna work if somebody's punching you in the face. It really goes out the window. So that's why you have to learn specifically jiu-jitsu for MMA, or a term that I've heard is also universal jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu that works across the board in sport and in MMA and in real life. You also learn ground and pound. Why is ground and pound important? Well, in the streets, it could very much happen that you end up on the ground. And if you're on the ground, you have to be able to defend yourself. You have to know how not to get knocked out and then get back up. If you learn ground and pound, you also know how to ground and pound. So you know how to be on top and control the person. And then if you need to rain down some shots, sure, but at least you know how to do it. You also learn how to fight against a wall. So you know how to take down from a wall. You know how not to be taken down on the wall, from the wall, and you know how to get back up, right? So that in itself is an art, guys. Like fighting up against the wall and all that, it's pretty difficult if you don't know what you're doing. Very, very difficult. Oh, and just to mention another point about ground and pound. If you're underneath, you also learn how to get up from underneath. So if somebody is on top of you, you learn what to do to basically get off your back as soon as possible, which is a super important skill for fighting in general. And that could happen anywhere, in the cage or on the streets. You learn to transition from striking to clinching to takedowns to grappling and then getting back up again and continuing the fight, which is something that I've noticed is pretty difficult. The transition is the key, guys, and that's what makes it so that your ability to fight anywhere the situation takes you. So MMA, across the board, in my opinion, makes you a more well-rounded fighter and more suitable skill set for overall self-defense. You can specialize after. And the fun thing about MMA is that once you get a good grasp of it, then you can fight anywhere where the situation takes you, or wherever you decide to take the situation. So let's say you do MMA for about 6 months to a year. Then after that, if you want to continue practicing it, then that's great. But I would highly recommend afterwards to specialize in something. So if you were to specialize in judo, well, now well, you would have amazing takedowns, judo style. Judo also helps you to develop amazing body awareness, balance, proprioception, and your ability to off balance your opponent and time them properly so that you could sweep them, so you could throw them. And that's something that could come in very, very handy in self defense. At the end of the day, guys, you want to be a jack of all trades, which is what MMA is going to give you, and a master of one. You guys must have heard this saying a little bit differently. So, something to the effects of a jack of all trades is a master of none. But I've heard that that's actually a mistake. And what I just said is actually the real saying. But regardless, I think that becoming a jack of all trades and a master of one is definitely the right approach, in my opinion. MMA schools these days are all over the place, and there are a lot of good ones, and of course, I'm sure there's a lot of bad ones as well. So you just have to be careful not to land yourself in a bad MMA school. But that could also be said for any kind of martial arts school, whether it be judo, boxing, wrestling, taekwondo, whatever. Now, in my case, I'm 45, guys. 45 years old. So when I started, there was no MMA, and I actually started in Kung Fu, and then I transitioned over to taekwondo. Then I transitioned over to some self-defense stuff, and then after that, it was BJJ. A lot, like 10 years later, because I stopped for a period of 10 years. And then from BJJ, I went to judo, and then from judo, well, when I was doing judo, then I started also kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, all of that, and MMA. So that's where I actually started all the other martial arts, all the other combat sports when I was doing judo. Now, if you don't have a MMA school, a good MMA school around, then you do with what you got. And judo and boxing is an amazing combo. So if you could do judo and boxing on a regular basis, then yeah, definitely do that, and you'll be okay with self-defense. But if you have the choice, if you have the option, then definitely a good MMA club to start with, because that will cover your bases for self-defense, and after that, specialize later. How long? Well, I think you got to train something seriously for at least 6 to 1 year, or maybe longer, to be honest. But if you just want like an overview, and if you train, let's say 2-3 times a week or more, I mean 6 months, a year, you'd be pretty solid for self-defense, and then you can specialize afterwards. Because why not pick something that you really enjoy and specialize in that, whether it be judo or boxing or jiu-jitsu, whatever. But at least you have a good frame of reference, so that when you train all the specialized combat sports, you know what works for the streets and what doesn't, and then you can focus on focus on the techniques that you want to focus on that works for you in a self-defense situation. I hope that made sense. All right, guys, that's it for this video. So if you have any questions, in the comments below, or if you want to talk to me directly, send me a message on IG, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.